So here we go with the topic for today. Topic for today: currency of relationships. By design, the title is an apparent contradiction because currency has to do with barter and exchange, and relationships don't have anything to do with barter and exchange, but therefore pure and impure. That's the subtitle. So the topic of relationships is relevant always. It's certainly relevant today for thoughtful persons. We're going to explore the topic. The lens through which we're going to explore the topic is through the teachings of Rupa Goswami. This is a nice painting of the two brothers, Rupa and Sanatan, who were associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they were from Brahmana families, very educated, elevated, erudite, and so forth. And they were highly positioned in the world, and they left those worldly positions to become associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gave them teachings, and he gave them the instruction to write those teachings. And so they did. Rupa Goswami's principal work, amongst many, was Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the nectar of devotion, the ocean of the nectar of devotion, which is about relationships. So that's the topic. And boiling it down from Rupa Goswami's teachings, what's a relationship? And the simple answer is the common basis of interaction between two or more people. Very simple. Relationship. Common basis of interaction between two or more people. What does common basis mean? Common basis means there's a commodity of exchange or currency that all parties agree on. So if you're in India, it's rupees. Or if you're in America, it's dollars. Or if you're somewhere, it's bitcoins or whatever it is. And so there's a currency or exchange that one agrees upon. That's the common basis of exchange. In relationship, it's not about money. So what's it about? Exchange implies both subject and object in the relationship. The roles alternate. Like one time someone is speaking, the other person is listening, and the one that was listening then speaks, and the one that was speaking listens, and there's an exchange. There's a currency that they accept. Now, the currency of relationships, generally speaking, is affection. There's the object and the subject. This is a painting, a drawing of a baby in a baby crib. And everyone's attention is, guess where? The invisible baby in the baby crib. And so the baby in the baby crib, that's the object. Then all the others are subjects. The persons who are viewing the baby in the baby crib, they're feeling something, or they're doing something, or they're saying something. That's their action. And then the person who's being acted upon, just like grammar, subject, object, and verb, sometimes a predicate or a qualifier. It's very simple. I mean, this is ABC simple. It's what's included in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The alternating roles in a relationship means sometimes someone is the object and sometimes someone is the subject. And like in a discussion, back and forth. We already discussed that. So the currency in a relationship is emotion, or rasa in Sanskrit. There's some taste between this person, that person, and in the exchange, they like each other. There's some emotion because there's something in the exchange that they find favorable. Supposing supposing somebody doesn't like sweet and they like sour. Supposing somebody doesn't like sour, they like pungent. Supposing somebody doesn't like pungent, they like salty. Supposing somebody so there's spices or things that make something flavored this way or flavored that way. And same with personalities. The exchange, the commodity is the emotion between the two. And some people talk this way and some people talk that way, and different persons. Now, going a little bit deeper, these emotions, according to Rupa Goswami, there's the primary emotion of love. The primary emotion is love. And then there's 7 secondary emotions. This is the bhakti rasa. Amazement, humor, chivalry, compassion, fury, fear, and dread. Secondary rasas. And the primary rasa is love. And that primary love, rasa, has 5 divisions. As you see in the lower left corner, there's students sitting at their desk. That's neutrality. There's a relationship, they're in the same room, they're doing the same work and the same subject matter, but it's neutral. And then a little above is when you don't just passively are beside one another, but you do some service unto one another. So servitude. And then not just servitude, but add a little spice to it or a little intimacy to it, it becomes a friend. And then another rasa, primary rasa, is parental affection. And then there's the conjugal affection, conjugal love. There's names for each of these in Sanskrit. This is just keeping it super simple for any audience. No, you're all, you know these terms. I could say the terms, but just keep it simple. From the lower left, going to the upper right. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, conjugal love. Now, that's not, some of these are appropriate with a little child in a baby crib. But the essence is there's a loving relationship. The person who loves, the person who's being loved. In neutrality, same series of 5. It's passive. It's not active. They're sitting together, but it's passive, neutrality. And when the object is a higher object, then it's some awe or respect. In servitude, there's not only respect, but beyond that which is neutrality, there's some service. And when that service adds a little confidential intimacy, becomes friendship. That's the 3rd photograph in this series. And when someone wants to take care of the other person, it can be literally a small child and a parent, or it can be between a friend, and one sees the other friend, commonly might be a younger friend, and the older friend, they look after the younger friend. They protect them, they maintain them. All of the previous elements are present, but plus the maintenance element. And then conjugal, where it's offering everything to that other person. Now it can be, the Sanskrit is Atmanivedana. It doesn't have to be male, female, or conjugal, that kind of intimacy, but that one offers to the other person everything. And then back to the title, there's pure and impure. There's something that has of a higher destination, a higher purpose, and something that has a lower destination or a lower purpose. Now, here's a big item in Rupa Goswami's teachings. Supposing you don't know who you are. Many people don't know who they are. And they try to have a loving relationship because it's natural to have, we want to love and be loved. But I don't know who I am, so I don't know who the other person is. I'm interested in a loving relationship because it's natural for souls to have such relationships. That's where the impurity comes. If I don't know who I am, I don't know who they are. We let's get together and have a nice relationship. Therefore, making this contrast pure and impure, the pure relationship is to know who you are, know who the other person is, and relate to who you are and who the other person is. And the wrong kind of knowledge is you don't know who you are, you don't know who they are. You accept who they aren't as to be who they are. The body and the mind is the covering of the self, but it's not the self. And it results in a pure, impure, and a temporary love. And, modern society, this says specifically educational institutions, but it's just life in general. It conditions us to the wrong conception. Like, the family members looking inside the crib, and they're identifying that's our son, or that's our sibling, that's a member of our family. The soul inside isn't seen. The covering of the soul is what's seen, and it becomes the object, and thus a wrong, using this language here, the wrong knowledge of who we really are, wanting to have a loving relationship. And the world around us stimulates it by the consumer society that we live in. Now, there is an option. The option is to actually know who somebody is on the spiritual platform. And then I know who I am on the spiritual platform. And then one can have a soul-to-soul relationship on the spiritual platform, still dealing with this body, that body. He's the son. He's the father, not the other way around. So you relate to father as father, but in a higher sense, he's a spirit soul, you're a spirit soul, but there's a relationship where you acknowledge that the covering, the body, and the body is growing, and you're getting older, and he's getting older, and so the relationship undergoes some transformation. But the essence is, the eternal essence is spirit soul to spirit soul, and temporarily there's a relationship of father-son. And pure, back to Rupa Goswami's teachings, a pure love or currency of relationships is where the emotion is exchanged regardless of the covering. And the ancient Vedic texts give this knowledge of who we really are and how to have relationships. And it gets conveyed to the degree that it's done so by transcendental sages. And those transcendental sages don't see in a us and them manner. They see in a transcendental manner. Non-sectarian transcendental sage. See properly. So now summary. We're moving right along. We're not doing bad. Pure relationship results from knowledge of who we are. I am, the other person, and relate according to that spiritual identity. Impure, it results from ignorance of who we really are. Now, here's a nice image. He's enjoying chocolate, she's enjoying strawberry ice cream. Is pure love to be had from some outside source? It's something within. Not something you superimpose. So knowledge of our identity awakens the pure love within us. Now this is Rupa Goswami's teachings put in very simple language. But self-knowledge, knowing our self-identity in a spiritual terms or a spiritual conception, there's another step after that. After I know who I am, I still have a desire to love and be loved. So if I identify myself with the eternal spark of life within, then the hankering for a relationship is on that spiritual platform. I still acknowledge, he's got a strawberry and she's got a chocolate ice cream. There's differences. Our bodies are different. Genders are different. Ages are different, etc., etc. Relationships are different. And there's one thing that's not different, and that's that we're all spirit soul. When we are covered by ignorance, then everything becomes impure. And that happens in this world. So some say, that's just life. There's impure relationships. And that, this little girl on the right side, she's on the receiving end of being part of a youngster in an impure relationship. Here's some statistics. This is USA statistics. In the year 2024, last year, something in the vicinity of a little over 2 million marriages. And the statistic from last year is 35% are likely to end in divorce within 15 years. That means 3.5 divorces within 1 year out of 1,000 marriages. It's not great. It's not terrible. And then when there's a marriage, sometimes there's a child. And 4.3 million live births and almost 1 million spontaneous abortions and a little over 1 million procured abortions. That's a lot of procured abortions. So let's get together and have a nice relationship. A child is on the way, and then they don't want the child that's on the way. Sometimes the actual birth happens. Sometimes spontaneous or unintended abortions occur, and sometimes it's medical. Here's another statistic. In the USA, this isn't world, crimes against a person, 1.4 million crimes. Crimes against property, almost 10 million, 9.8 million. So there's a lot of misuse or abuse of relationships between one person and another person. All right. We're halfway through, more than halfway through. Welcome. You all know each other, right? No introductions needed. Okay. You ready? I'm going to do a review for those of you that just came in. The topic is by design, the topic is a contradiction. Currency of relationships. Currency generally means monetary exchange. Currency. And relationships aren't about, for money you do this, and without having the money you're not going to do this. It's just relationship isn't based upon monetary currency. So there's some other currency. It's love or emotion. So we went through Rupa Goswami's teachings on what is a relationship. And there's different categories of relationships. But ultimately, the relationship is an exchange between one and another, subject, object, and then they vacillate or alternate back and forth. And that's a relationship. And what's being exchanged between is currency, but the currency is emotion. Through words, through actions, or just gestures without even either words or actions. So there's something meaningful to one and another in that relationship. Then we just went through, however, if I don't know who I am and I don't know who the other person is, and I try to have a relationship, it's not going to go very well. And most people don't know who they are. From a spiritual perspective, they think of themselves in terms of the covering, but not who they really are. Because the coverings come and go. They come for some time, and then they go. But we don't. We continue. From Bhagavad Gita, the soul is eternal. Souls are never born, souls never die, and all those nice teachings of Chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. So if I don't know who I am, and I try to find happiness through a relationship of not who I am and who the other person is, it's frustrating. It's not satisfying. It's something, but it's not what real satisfaction in a loving relationship is. So we just did some statistics of how many marriages in the USA last year, how many divorces, how many here is, then abortions. He and she get together, they have a child on the way, and there's 1 in every 4 becomes a procured abortion. Not a good statistic. That's USA. What to speak of other things, contraception, etc. So here's the last slide, what's on the screen here. There's crime. There's persons that live in a community, and there's crime against property and crimes against the person. It happens. To wait far too often. It happens. On the average, 26, almost 27,000 crimes against property every day in the USA, and a large number of crimes against a person every day. And even in close relationships, there's, amongst college students, it's one of those things. It's not now. These days. It's not just college students, but it's a statistic, a known statistic amongst college students is relationship violence. Here's from an issue of adolescent medicine. All forms of relationship violence are prevalent among male and female college students, semicolon. Almost half of students had experienced relationship violence at some point in their lives. More than 1/3 had experienced violence before college, and 1/4 experienced violence during college. That's a big statistic. No, this doesn't give the boundaries of what constitutes, if they're doing a survey or however they do the interviews, what constitutes relationship violence, and where it's like okay and where it's not okay. So there's no description, but it's a statistic. So here's a little summary. The exchange of love between one temporary limited body and another temporary limited body ends in temporary limited love. Pretty easy. And in contrast, the love between one eternal, powerful soul and another eternal, powerful soul results in lasting, powerful relationship. Now, the reality is, between one body and another body, there's differences. There's differences in gender, there's differences in personality, differences in bodily construction, there's differences and differences and differences. And one of the issues in developing wholesome relationship is being respectful of differences, because there's differences. Supposing I'm okay with these differences, but over there's another I'm not so okay with. And that's understandable. Some things just may not be acceptable. But in bodily types, this painting is illustrating a verse from Bhagavad Gita. You see the fellow standing back there by the banyan tree? That's a sannyasi. He's the one that is being spoken about. And he's the learned sage, Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmani Gavi Hastani, Shuni Chaiva Svapaki Cha, Pandita Samadarshana. You're familiar with the verse. Pandita, learned person. Samadarshana, important phrase. Sees with equal vision. Samadarshana. Pandita Samadarshana. The bodies are different. The Gavi, the Hasti, the dog eater, the Brahmana, different bodies accepted, different bodies. And within each of the bodies, there's a soul that's present, and that soul is the Sama, or the position of equality amongst differences. Here's a nice little example. It's easy, really easy, to illustrate what I've just been saying. 1, 2, 3. Here's a little photograph of a drop of water hitting the surface of water. We all know what happens. Concentric circles, little bloop, splash, and then concentric circles expand. And it's very nice. Supposing we will all, there's a pond of water, everybody gets a pebble. Take your pebble and toss your pebble, and that's what happens. And then, okay, now you, and there's 2 concentric circles that expand and that find until they intersect, and when they intersect, there's some clash. And then supposing we say on the count of 3, everybody else take your stone and throw it in the pond of water. And it's chaos. And that's life in the material world. There's no center. Supposing there's a center. Supposing everybody see that spot in the middle, place your pebble on that spot in the middle, what happens? Concentric circles expand, but they amplify one another. The differences are there, fine. And then there's a center. And supposing somebody has a different idea of what's center than I have, and somebody else has a different idea than both of us, and everybody's got a different idea of what's the center. It's more chaos, more strife and quarrel. That's what happens when it's mundane relationships. Frustration because we don't agree on what the center is. Or we don't even think there should be a center. I'm at the center. That's material relationships or mundane relationships. And this is what we want. Diversity, fine. Variegatedness, fine. With one center. There's one of our ISKCON devotees named Bir Krishna Maharaj. He spent some time studying under Marshall Rosenberg. Maybe you know of this term, nonviolent communication. You've heard it, NVC? No, yeah, you have. Okay. He lived in, I think, Arizona or New Mexico, one of those places down there. And he developed a school where he taught how to have nonviolent as opposed to violent communication when there's differences. Differences are going to be there, and you talk it out, and there are different ways of talking it out. One, you got a stick in your hand, and the other, you try to understand the other person. So he taught, one of the ways he taught, you see in the photograph, he has on one hand is a giraffe, and the other hand is a jackal. And he would imitate the jackal speak. That's the disagreeing personality type. And then the giraffe is the nonviolent speaking person. He describes that he selected the giraffe because in proportion to their body, the heart is really big. So the giraffe speak. So he would teach, here's a topic that there's disagreement between party A and party B, and here's how the jackal deals with it, the violent communicator type, and here's how the nonviolent communicator type will deal with it when there's differences of view. And he had a whole school, wrote books and gave seminars. One of our leading devotees liked what he was doing. He thought it would be very relevant for our life as devotees of Krishna. And so he took a seminar, became a graduate from his school, and then started teaching it in Krishna consciousness language. So he just changed the title from nonviolent communication to empathic communication. And then wrote a book on it, and some other devotees really liked what those teachings are, because if you read in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verse 15, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. He speaks about austerity of speech, which says, when you speak, it should be done in such a way that the truth is spoken, but palatably, because there are ways to speak the truth not palatably, and there are ways to speak the truth palatably. And to be able to speak the truth palatably, it takes mode of goodness. And if you don't have the mode of goodness, you may think you know what the truth is, but it's not likely to come across palatably. What Marshall Rosenberg was teaching and what Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita are the same, at least in Bhagavad Gita, as the principle. Then practically speaking, how do you do it? Of course, you have to become elevated to the mode of goodness, but then the person in the mode of goodness has choices of how they speak and what they speak and when they speak and what tone and what language and all those other things. How you read how it's impacting the other person, and you may redirect how you're speaking or what you're speaking, because the purpose of good communication starts with respect. And because I respect fundamentally, I respect you and you and you and you, because we're all parts of the same source of everything, the same absolute truth. We're part and parcel. So on that basis, I respect you fundamentally. And there may be something that needs some adjustment or improvement, and you can say that in a way that's pleasing. You can say that in a way that you don't care. So it's a Bhagavad Gita message. Very much the same idea. This next slide expresses the same idea. Get ready, we're going to have an abrupt ending real soon. Here's a little diagram from a TED Talk. The TED Talk was made by, as you see in the lower left, his name is Chad Meng Tan, and he was a employee of Google. Google's a big company. And he was given a full-time job in Google to teach compassion. Because, a bunch of people that are really smart get together and they don't always agree with one another. It's understandable. And so he was commissioned, full-time job, to teach compassion in the workplace. Now it's almost like, currency of relationships. With the workplace is not a place where you're compassionate. The workplace is a place where you strive and succeed, and the other person's getting in the way, you step on them, and you succeed because you're smart and you know how to do smart things, and you just do it. As they say, just do it. Don't be sensitive to. Try to say things in a mode of goodness way. Just get it right and do it. So, full time. This is his background. He's a Buddhist by upbringing and by his convictions. And he teaches what you see on the screen. With compassion, there's three parts. I mean, not everyone has compassion, but or lives that way. But there's the there's the affective. That's something that you feel. I feel for you. Then there's the cognitive. I understand you. We spoke about relationships where people don't know who they are, they don't know who the other person is, so that the cognitive function is missing. And then there's the motivational, where there's compassion. You want to do something for that other person who you're feeling. It's just like the baby in the crib. And the baby in the crib is crying. And they, maybe it's a toy, maybe it's a pacifier, maybe they're hungry, maybe their diaper needs to be changed, maybe, they have this need, that need, the other need. Generally, it's physical and emotional. But you don't know because they can't communicate back. But you want to do something if the baby's crying. It's just human. That's the motivation. The cognitive is you may or may not understand what their need is. And this, if it's true for a baby, it's also true for another person. And then the affective side it supersedes or resides kind of on overseeing the whole thing. It's a feeling for another person. So those three elements. This is part of his little 20-minute TED Talk. It's a good TED Talk. So he says that the teaching of Buddhism encompasses these three with 2 points. 1, humility. If you're humble, you can get a grasp to some degree at least of the other person, yourself and the other person. This is the know who you are and know who the other person is topic. And then some feeling. If there's humility. So he in his Google job, he tries to teach this model by teaching humility, and one that seems like the opposite of humility, which is ambition. But ambition that's not bridled by humility can be very problematic. Some people are very ambitious, and look out, here I come, because I'm the smartest guy in the room. Just ask me. So, that's a problem. That's a bull in the china shop kind of a dynamic. So how to have people productive, motivated to do something that's meaningful and useful, the ambition thing that's on the right side, while at the same time they're humble. And you put the two together, and his service is to explain the model and then to train people how to do both, to have ambition to be successful in Google. At the same time, be very humble, because the whole team can accomplish much more than one guy who may be very smart. That's fine. But much more can be accomplished if you have a group of people working together towards the same goal than one guy that's the smartest guy in the room doing what he does. It doesn't have the same impact on yourself and the world and those around you. That's his message in the TED Talk. One final little message and then a little video and we're done. So abrupt ending, get ready. This is Mother Teresa, who put this little sign on her wall in her orphanage. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you'll win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. 2 more. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have. It will never be enough. Give your best anyway. And then the punchline. In the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Now, it's a model. This is the at the center, there's one. And then there's diverse, and the diverse can be all over the place, and that's okay. Don't lose the center. And you stay fixed on the center, and it can harmonize differences. At least from your side, from your perspective, leave you undisturbed. And then you can proceed forward on the journey of being successful in life on a particular project or life in general with God-centeredness, with that one center that's there. And that's our opportunity, our life. Now comes a little video. This is it. I hope it works because it doesn't always work. What happened? Oh, okay. Let me see what happened. So this whole slide didn't come up. Oh, no wonder. So let me come out and see what happens. Well, what to do? Who's the technology guy? You're gonna fix it, right? You'll try.
Hoping.
Okay.
Just go back to just come out of the slide share.
Come out of the what? What?
The slide. And then restart.
This one?
This is the one. This didn't show.
Got stuck over there.
Okay, I'll close it and open it again. Yes?
Disconnect this and then.
Okay, disconnect this. That's fine. Connect it again. Okay, let's see if it works.
This one? This one is the charge.
That's power.
That's power cable. Why did it
वेदांत
cut?
पहले ना वो स्लाइड का जो दिख रहा है उससे बाहर आ जाओ.
You disconnect ही कर दिया.
Disconnected the cable.
Yeah.
No,
No,
From the
still,
laptop.
we have this option of putting the slide share in the PPT, right?
No. Now it's not visible. I was talking about
Da 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 da. Technology is great when it works.
It's on the reacts. Now you can.
Okay. Hang on. I'll find it. Okay.
You want water to this trouble?
Okay. Now let's go to this one. Okay, this is the one that didn't show. We'll just show it again. Hopefully it'll work. So one by one. This is Mother Teresa. And the punchline is the one. It in the final analysis is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. This is relationship. It's like that's the center. And this person may think they're the center. That person may think they're the center, etc., etc. But in the final analysis, there's one center. And if one is acknowledging that one center, somebody can go off this way, that way, that way. It's okay. Because it doesn't change what the center is. So now here's the little video. Yay. That's the end. I didn't create this thing, somebody else did. But it's nice. And just circle back to where we began. This started with a little presentation on Rupa Goswami and his teachings on Bhakti Rasa. And to understand Bhakti Rasa starts with understanding who we are, who the Supreme is, who another person is, to have really meaningful relationships with that proper kind of knowledge. And when the absence of knowledge is ignorance, and that leads to some problems, dissatisfaction. Okay, here's the Rupa and Sanatana Goswami with us at the beginning. Short and sweet. Emphasis on short and sweet. See if there's some discussion. And again, you all know each other, yes? Okay.
Maharaj, when we were discussing the punchlines,
Mother Teresa.
the Mother Teresa gave, and I connected with a saying like, when going gets tough, the tough gets going. There's a saying like that. So,
Yes, I've heard that one.
yeah. So, do you make peace with the tough, or how do you?
It depends on the
keep moving
circumstance. The main, whether it's this or that, turn left or right, the main thing is don't depart from truth. The truth is the absolute truth. So there's truths, and there's the truth, the absolute truth behind the truths, and don't depart from the absolute truth. Sometimes people get invested in, there's this drawing. Someone's looking at a figuration on the floor. From this side it looks like a 6, from that side it looks like a 9, and they're arguing. No, it's a 6. No, it's a 9. So, respecting there's differences of angles of vision, what's the absolute truth? Whether it's a 6 or 9 is not the absolute truth. Yes. So prioritize going forward when there's differences, because there's going to be differences because we're different. Stay centered. It's Bhagavad Gita message, but it's also a relationship message. In Bhagavad Gita's message, one who has that fixed consciousness, they're not disturbed even in the greatest calamity, because they're connected to who they are, and they're connected to the absolute truth, the source of everything. And to navigate that's yoga.
Sorry?
To navigate getting to that place is yoga. Linking with the Supreme, yoga, and different types according to disposition and trajectory of evolution and so forth. That's our mission. That's our human mission. There's lots of things in between, like college, in your career, and what you have for breakfast, and there's lots of things in between.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thoughtful, educated ones, what are your thoughts?
Don't feel shy.
I'll make a comment. I find it, when I first heard this TED talk by this Google employee, that they must have, the Google people, the executives, must have found there's enough dissension in the ranks. We got to do something. And they can't, this is one of the somethings, it doesn't say the only something that they did, but to emphasize compassion. Now there's a Buddhist model for it, but there's elements that make up compassion, and without compassion you'll have dissension. Without a center, you'll have dissension. And if you have a big company like Google, you got a lot of employees that are really smart guys, and they're going to have clamoring fights about stuff. It lowers productivity, doesn't it? And then you get groups that center around this view or that leader and another leader and his group, and clashes, and in companies and in the world. It goes on in cycles. So what's the solution? Find that center, not just create one. Is there such a thing? It's common. Supposing there isn't a center, I'll say, this is the center over here. Place your pebble over here, please. Now, it may work for a while, but if that's not really what the center is, if that's not really what the source of everything is, it can last for a while, but it's not going to endure. the different isms. Communism and capitalism. But without the God conscious center, then there's dissension. And it doesn't matter what, this communist group and that communist group can have a big battle. It goes on. You want to add something?
Can I
Please.
make a comment and then a question?
Yes, sure.
So maybe comment is more towards all of you. Almost 25 years ago, I was in your position. Very similar situation at Penn State. Maharaj giving lecture to me and my roommates and friends. And so I was fortunate to meet him at that time, but I think it applies to all of you as well today. First of all, thank you all for coming, making the time. And those of you who live here, I know took you some effort to organize everything, so really appreciate it. But I can assure you, this is probably the best moment in your life to think deeper, to go deeper on spiritual topics like this, because once you graduate and get busy with, the next stage of your life, it's going to be more challenging, right? So this is a great time, and so once again, appreciate you all making the time. And Vedant and Tejesh, thank you for organizing this. Maharaj, one of the questions that arises is, this visual of pebbles in the water is very powerful, but how to agree on the center, right? Because that's the first disagreement. So could you offer some guidelines on that?
The principle of what's the center is a little easier to agree on than give it a label or a name. But so, in the English language, there's God, or in Sanskrit language, there's Atma and there's Paramatma, or Ishvara or Parameshvara, or Brahman and Parabrahman. So we're in the category of Brahman, and we're not in the category of Parabrahman. So without a name or label or an ism, the center is Parabrahman. So to say that I am Brahman doesn't mean I'm Parabrahman. And there's so many Brahmans here in the room, but we're not Parabrahman. So that the center is Parabrahman, or Parameshwara, or Paramatma. So in principle, without the name and label, because different cultures and different contexts have different nomenclature, and that's fine. But it's the principle. And once the principle is there, then it's very easy to be respectful of persons that have a different nomenclature, because it's the same entity. Now, is it possible? The answer is yes to this question. Is it possible that someone that has this nomenclature, they don't like that nomenclature? It's got to be this nomenclature, or you're garbage, or you have to be reformed. You have to be saved. You have to be rescued, or you have to be defeated in battle or something, the Crusades or the something. So then it's then it's not God's at the center. It's my ism is at the center. My belief system. So leaving aside, taking principles from Bhagavan, or from the Sanskrit nomenclature, are there persons that follow the Vedas that have differences of opinion? Yes. And then the ultimate in the history of the Vedic culture, there is a common agreement that Brahman and Parabrahman is the supreme. So of someone may worship Lord Nrsingadev, someone may worship Krishna, someone may worship Ramachandra, someone may worship this or that form of Vishnu. But the principle, there's one source of everything, is the principle to go for. So Bhagavad Gita is a widely accepted, generally accepted text within the Vedic paradigm of the speaker is the supreme source of everything. And he declares that in the Bhagavad Gita, several places without reciting the verses. So it's authoritative. And one can be a follower of Bhagavad Gita and a worshiper of this one, that one, and the other one, because the principles are what's discussed, not necessarily this name, that name, the other name. The principle is discussed. Just like in your basement on Friday evening, one Bengali gentleman came and lodged his complaint about Mother Teresa. But the basis of his lodging his complaint was what Krishna says, that when you perform your prescribed duty, you're not attached to the result, but the result gets offered to Vishnu. So that's the principle. That doesn't matter, this ism, that ism. It's a principle. So Bhagavad Gita is accepted in that manner. It's a principle to live by. It's fun that the source is the source of everything. That's that center. Now, are there persons, back to your question, are there persons that hold there's a different center? Yes. Within the Vedic paradigm, there are devatas. A major portion of the Vedas is worship of demigods. This demigod, that demigod, this devi, to achieve something. And it's Vedic. However, in those different achieve this thing, that thing, the other thing, where did the personality that gives this thing? Where does Uma get the power to give a good spouse? Or what does Saraswati get the power to give good knowledge education? Or where does Ganesh get the power to remove obstacles to achieve what you want to achieve? Or where does any Deva or Devi get their power to do what they do? From that source. So there's not a disagreement. It's just a stage of development or evolving in spiritual understanding. So it's not one who has an understanding of that which is the source of everything can be very peaceful being with all varieties of people because there's one source of everything. Now, back to your question. When there's disagreement, what's the one source of everything? We go to the standard texts, like Bhagavad Gita. What's the source of everything? Now, supposing I'm a Buddhist and I don't want to accept the Vedas. Such a person is never going to know what the source of everything is. They'll reach a different conclusion. But if one wants to know, tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So there's a procedure to get for that person who wants to know. The authoritative sources. They're universally accepted. There's different interpretations of those universal sources, but the universal sources have it. And there's not, to go the other direction, if there's not an acceptance of a universal source, then there's endless dissension. But in principle, if there's one universal source, there's the potential of universal agreement. Although the forms may be different, the principles aren't different.
That even when you refer to the universal source and you have different perspectives to view that, and you can be even sometimes be critic of yourself, like
Be critic of
the same understanding of you, you getting the same. There might be conflicting views, when you see the same things, when you approach the same universal source, which you are saying,
Yes,
when
yes.
we refer to Bhagavad Gita,
Okay.
when we refer to a verse with different views,
Yes.
definitely there are
Okay, but
many
that-
different views.
Okay, but that's just if there's one source. Let's say Bhagavad Gita is that one source. Then you and I, or somebody and somebody that have different view on what that source says, we can discuss. But we're not differing that there is a source.
Yeah. By being critical regarding to that, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends. Depends on am I speaking from my scholarship, or am I speaking from authority?
As it says, like everything is infinite. Like we are finite beings. So
Yes, we are definitely.
yeah, we are finite beings. So where do we draw the line? Like
Well-
this is it, which I wanted to know, and further than this, like it's much.
No, I'm not sure what you be. Ask your question in a different way because I'm not sure what you're asking. Just now.
Yeah.
Do it again.
So my question is like, as we are finite beings,
We're finite.
and the scripture or the book which we are approaching is infinite,
Yes.
and where do we draw the line that my understanding of that particular thing is enough for me to move on?
Okay. Well,
Like-
then we have to verify my understand. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, every living entity is carrying some conception of life, like the air carries aroma. The mind carries the conception, like air carries aroma. And here's this air, then there's that air, and they're all carrying some aroma. This mind, that mind, the other mind, we have different conceptions. We have the same text, Bhagavad Gita. But my read of this text is this, and your read of the same text is that, and somebody else is something else. But so that the starting point is the text itself, and then so from where does my view and the other person's view and the other person's view come from? What's the authority behind it? I'll give it a little example. It's an interesting one. In France, Prabhupada was having a discussion with a translator, with a cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church in France. Cardinal Danelu was his name. So Prabhupada asked him a question. In your scripture, does it say in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill? Yes. So could you explain to me, Cardinal, why it is that you endorse animal killing? And then he got a little flustered and said, because animals have no soul. So it's not killing. Thou shalt not kill doesn't mean animals, because animals have no soul. So then Prabhupada replied, could you tell me where it says that in the Bible, that the animals have no soul? That's a conception in the mind to justify X. But then where's the authority to support that conception that's in the mind? And if there isn't some authority, then please consider. No, please consider that these statements from Scripture that say that there's souls everywhere, sarvagata, and with everything that's alive, there's a soul within that everything. It's not that animals they appear to be alive, but there's no soul. They're robots. Right? This young fellow won an award for robotics.
Thank you, Mother.
Okay. So the authority behind the conception of what the text says.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining us over here. So, Prabhu, I listen that you are talking about conception, views, and thought process of a human in a finite life, as we are human, so we have finite life. So, Prabhu, between all of this struggle, when does self-realization occurs? And
When?
when does self-realization, as Bhagavad Gita talks about
Your
self-realization
question
itself,
is when?
yeah, when does self-realization occurs?
You're saying the same thing. I just want to make sure that I've got your question. So
Yeah.
it's there's a comparison. Very simple. It's very simple. The rising of the sun. The sun rises every morning. And before the sun rises, there's some indicator the sun is about to rise. I mean, besides, you can check the almanac and it or something and tells you this at this time today the sun's going to rise. But before the sun rises, the darkness of night starts to get a little bit of a glow. That is the light. You can't see the sun, but you can see the light from the sun before you see the sun. And then, boop, on the horizon, there's this big orange globe, and then it starts to get smaller and smaller, and so that's the rising of the sun. So your question is when, and the answer to there's symptoms of what it's going to be like, but the when depends upon yoga, making that link with the Supreme. When the link with the Supreme is established, then that's when self-realization occurs. Supposing, you use another little example, supposing he's got all the spaghetti cables over here, and some of them are plugged into the outlet in the wall. There may be some other ones that aren't. So which one is live? Which one isn't? Yeah, one that's connected. So you connect that when your question of when you connect with that which is connected to the powerhouse, and you paid your electric bill, you get electricity. That's when. The realization that there's electricity in this wire is when all those downline events have taken place. That's yoga, linking with the Supreme. And there's different systems of yoga. When the connection is made in a proper way, and then comes back to this question of okay, what are those systems, and how do I evaluate my understanding of this system versus another guy's understanding of the same system or another system? So it comes down to authority. So within Bhagavad Gita, the description of the authority system is disciplic succession. Chapter 4, the beginning parts of chapter 4. That's the connection. When it's secured, then here comes electricity. And when it's not secured, there's no electricity. Yoga nashta parantapa. The knowledge is lost. And therefore, Krishna says, I've come to establish this again with you, Arjuna. So, in disciplic succession, making that connection, then the connection is there, and you feel that connection, and then gradually the sun rises, or the experience of self-realization is gradual, like the rising of the sun, but you feel it's happening even before the sun rises, even before full self-realization. So you feel something, and then you can verify it according to Scripture, that the modes of ignorance and passion subside, and there's a happiness within. All these verses are described in Scripture. One who's a follower of that system of linking with the Supreme, or the system of yoga. So back to your question, when the connection is made, and it may be even when the connection is made, it may be gradual. Just like if there was a fan in the ceiling, you turn the fan, you turn the switch. It starts slowly, and then it builds up a little speed, and it takes a while to full speed. And once you switch it off, it's going to keep spinning for a bit, and then it'll slow down and stop. So the when question is make the proper connection and be patient.
Thank you, Prabhu. I have one more question.
Yeah.
So we always talk about when good thoughts and bad thoughts come
Mm.
together, we always compare them.
Okay.
Like people might have good thoughts and bad thoughts, and the conflict between it, the struggle between it, what to choose.
This is within oneself, not
Yeah,
between two people.
yeah, within
Okay.
oneself.
Okay.
So nowadays, what I'm struggling, I'm getting good thoughts and self-realizations, but the thing is like I'm having two opinions on it. So
Like,
both of them are good, both of them are right. But the thing is like why am I getting? If I'm getting self-realization, then it should be direct, right? Like if the connection is met, then the understanding should be clear and crystal clear. I should not have any contradicting thought on it.
okay, what to do?
What to do, Prabhu? I am asking you.
That's your question. I'm
Yes,
stating
Prabhu.
your question. Guru Sadhu Shastra. You've heard that, right? Guru. So you go to a guru. You know, I'm conflicted between this and that. What should I do? And Guru isn't just going to pull something out of the air. He's going to make reference to Shastra and say, according to Shastra, da 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 da. And knowing you, da 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 can be done in three different ways. This is my recommendation, knowing you, but if you can't do the best of the three, you can try these other two. You know, you take direction or guidance from a teacher, the guru. And then plural, there's sadhus, very wise people that you look up to, and they're trustworthy, and you trust them, and you can hear from them. They're not going to say something different from Guru and Shastra. The final is Shastra, but then how do you apply it? That's back to his question. You know, there's an authority that represents, and I find one that I accept as an authority that represents, and I go to that person and say, I'm confused, I'm conflicted. They both seem right. What is best for me? It's exactly what Arjuna did. Exactly. They were having a discussion back and forth that was going nowhere. Then Shishyas Teham Sharimam Tvam Prapanam. Please instruct me.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi,
Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I have a question. Of course, you spoke a lot about relationships. This morning, I showed the man I love that I'm there for him no matter the struggles he faces. But I noticed that he's been running very aggressively towards his goals. And I see
Towards what?
towards his goals.
Towards his goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I see his health being affected. And that is something I want to tell him to, please take a pause. There is life beyond the goals that you want to achieve. There are things more than money. So how do I keep assuring him that I am there for him in every phase of his life? And also, I want to make sure that he sees life beyond materialism.
Yes, thank you for this question. This is one of these conflict things, or potential conflict, but it's not. It's the same pocket. It's not two pockets. So when you're putting something in this pocket, and you're putting something else in the same pocket, it's the same pocket. So if you being there for this person, part of it, you being there for this person is not being a nag, but being a reminder of what you just said. Beyond the temporary, there's something more permanent, isn't it? So, in that, I would assume, because the relationship is what the relationship is, although I don't know the person, that's okay. There's a person that is invested in goals, and there's also some sense in that person of something beyond the temporary. So you just, without nagging, you be, supportive of the goals and at the same time supportive of the ultimate goal. Now, between lover and beloved, it's one relationship, but the same principle applies to any relationship. I just spent some time in his home describing a youngster that just got accepted at Northwestern University, blah, 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 blah. Long story. His father wrote to me because he heard the class. And he knew who I was referring to because he knows his son. He knows what his son just went through. And he said, I didn't comment, but except when I heard your class, I knew you were speaking about my son. And he was impacted by the letter that you wrote to him, because I talked about the letter that I wrote to him. It was basically what you said, but, in different language, but the same basic, there's something beyond the temporary. And go for it with the temporary. Go. You're accepted at Northwestern. Succeed. Be very successful. But what's success, anyways? Is it temporary or is it permanent? So when you're going for the temporary, please, it's not balance between temporary and eternal. It's all towards the eternal. And invest in the short term towards the long term. Don't forget the long term, or the same topic we were using here, this center. Don't forget the center. So you just, without being a nag, you can be a loving personality in his life, a very important loving personality in his life, and you're reminding him when he has a tendency to forget. That's a friend. And friends can be, husband and wife, and friends can be friend and friend, or teacher student, or friendship, and reminding somebody when they forget or have a tendency to forget. And you'll hear back if he said, "Look, don't bug me, man."
Fortunately, he did not.
Okay. But, then you pause and you at a right time and circumstance, he may feel badly that he spoke like that and then apologize later. Anyway, there's relationship. But you stay true to what you know the person to be and what life to be under the authority of Guru Sadhu Shastra, and you just stay the course and be the support that helps him achieve more than the temporary. Because life is meant for something more than the temporary. Or in addition to, but leading to the impermanent. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. My name is Dikshit Bhandari. I have a question when it comes to a relationship between a son and his parents, a son and his wife. So there is always a situation where son has to go through a lot of tough time, you can tell the side of either parents or his wife. He always has to be thinking both are right in their terms. They both,
they mean well, at least.
Yes.
They may not necessarily be right, but they mean well.
Yes. So I mean, the question is how do son has to deal this situation?
Yeah, okay. So be respectful. You can differ with somebody without disrespect. Depends, whether you just roll over and play dead and go along with whatever it is that they want, even though it's not what you want. It's okay to do that. But if there's something that's principle based, you can disagree respectfully. But never, in any case, don't depart from respect. And that takes some, culture and intelligence. So where do you get intelligence? Where does intelligence come from? Bhagavad Gita says intelligence comes from supersoul. So what you can do to prepare yourself or qualify yourself to deal with tough situations is develop your relationship with supersoul, so that you'll get the intelligence to know how to deal with parents that are being, well-intentioned, but, not really tuned into your situation, the pressures that you're having to deal with, and it's okay that they don't know all that stuff, but intelligence how to deal with their heart and their well-wishing unto you that's just kind of doesn't hit the target with what you're going through and what you have to deal with. So never depart from respect, and get intelligence from Supersoul how to deal with difficulties. And supposing you're not there yet in terms of relationship with Supersoul and thus sufficient intelligence, what do you do? What do you do in between? You smile. And if when a difficulty can be an advantageous situation, because when an advantageous situation, if you're a pious person, you take deeper shelter of the source of everything, and you sincerely, more so than yesterday, today, I'm sincerely focusing on my relationship with the source of everything, with the Supreme, with Krishna, for me. And Krishna, please give me the intelligence to properly deal with this difficulty. And sometimes there isn't a quick answer, and sometimes it takes a while. But you're still smiling because you have trust in that relationship with Supersoul to give you the intelligence how to deal with a difficult situation. So you can remain undisturbed even in the greatest calamity, like this earlier discussion. And in the long term, make your connection with Paramatma, with Supersoul, with the Supreme Person, stronger. Read scripture so you understand better what are some of the options for me in this difficult situation. And something may trigger and get sparked, and you have a path to move on that makes sense to you. Never departing from respect. I mean, it's easier said than done, but that's the path. The path of awakening God consciousness. I'm waiting for the yeah, but.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to wrap up. Thank you all for coming. You're busy fellows, gals, but you came, so thank you. And we have a little prasadam plan. Okay, I brought some. When I came here from Fort Lauderdale. Oh, look at this. Okay, little girl. Oop. Okay. They sent with me some Mahaprasadam for their deities in Fort Lauderdale. They have a little box over here with Mahaprasadam. So I'm going to give out some Mahaprasadam.